you want to learn about Bitcoin, go read the white paper first.
Right.
It's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
First read, but then read it again. If I go back to what I just spoke about, perception of reality and all those other pieces, right? Like, who could potentially win in the upcoming decade? You get what I'm trying to say? So, like, we're
Yeah.
not sure that they're going to be the ones that capture all the value, but there can be a perception that Rigetti is going to be the one, or IonQ is going to be the one that captures all the value in that market, right?
Mm.
And I'm not going to only listen to CNBC or only listen to Bloomberg or only listen to Fox Business or only listen to whatever other angles are, but figure out ways to automate and feed yourself those news articles.
Definitely. I know a lot of people want to hear about stocks, so I am going to ask, do you have any stocks in the innovation area that you are currently investing in?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tyjuan Hughey, founder and CEO of Innovate Solutions and host of the Innovation Edge podcast. Thank you for tuning in today. Today, we'll be talking about everything from capital markets, innovation, and finance. Now, I do want to preface before getting started that this episode is not financial advice. Any opinions shared in this episode is just opinions and just that. A wealth of knowledge has been shared on this episode from our guests, and I do want to make sure that you soak in everything, take notes, and make sure you actually listen to what he is saying. There are 2 points that have stood out to me that I want you to be extra aware of, and when you hear him talk about this or subjects in this matter, I want you to perk your ears up and listen extra heavily. So the first one is the domino effect. When looking at investing and looking into what to grow or looking in what to invest in, you must look at the domino effect. Does it have the domino effect? Will it fall back on this? He brings up energy a lot in investing. Well, you can't do nothing without energy in the innovation market. Everything falls back on energy. Everything goes to energy. Nothing will be supplied without energy. So he's saying that the domino effect is what falls back on it. And that is energy. Falls back on the innovation need. Now at Innovate Solutions, I am proud to say we are serving another domino effect. What else does everything fall back on? Data. And we know most companies don't have an organized structure or organized system on a way to analyze data or collect data. And we know a lot of times with software, you can't just do anything with the software. You must upload proper data to get the best output. And with predictive analytics platforms and digital twins, this is ultimately important if you want an efficient mirror and an efficient software platform that can help you efficiently. So if you're looking to get your data in order, make sure you contact Innovate Solutions to help you today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tyjuan Hughey, founder and CEO of Innovate Solutions and host of the Innovation Edge podcast. Today's episode, we are focusing on finance, capital markets, and innovation. We have a special guest, Mr. Nedrick. Thank you so much for joining
Hey,
today. Today's
yeah,
focus,
for
we will
sure.
be high. Today's focus will be highlighting how innovation shows up in capital markets and how investors can stay ahead and bring this to reality. I do want to give a disclaimer before we get started and make this clear that this podcast is for informational purposes only and not investment advice. So all opinions shared is just opinions, and that's what it is. So I would love for you, Mr. Nedrick, to introduce yourself and tell the audience who you are and uh yeah, who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Nedrick Haye. I've been now a fan of finance and ultimately money as a whole and how money and structure helps progress society, and
Mhm.
even a bit of a historian on the side of understanding where money and capital kind of has been a bit of I guess you could say, a detriment to society in a way as well. So I've, studied finance as well as computer engineering at Howard
Mm,
University, and then later on at Florida International University. Um, so, I mean, spent a great deal of time learning there, as well as learning siloed within reading books and picking up specifically from work experience as well, bits and pieces here and there. So I've been in finance now in the field for about pushing up on 6 years. It's
wow.
been awesome learning experience all through and through, but definitely been
Mm.
great nonetheless.
If you could say what's one of the toughest things about finance, what would that be? If you could say.
The toughest thing probably that comes to finance may be emotion,
Hmm.
in terms of like the finance field is very very particular in a way,
Hmm.
right? Like, I mean, maybe it's not finance specific, like there's people that are go to residency for their doctorate to become doctors, and they have their degrees in biology or whatever other related fields, but finance as a whole tends to be very closed. Like, you have
Hmm.
to fight your way into it.
Hmm.
And if you're not coming from a target school, or you don't come from the background of, such and such father, grandfather, went to Duke
Hmm.
and then was able to, what I mean? Like I think
Yeah.
just the entry into finance itself is probably one of the toughest parts.
Hmm.
So like emotionally and psychologically being able to understand that,
Hmm.
and kind of pick and choose your battles,
Hmm.
is definitely key in finance.
Definitely. And before we get started, I know this is the Innovation Edge podcast. Do you have any advice for the younger generation who wants to break into finance and may not come from that background to get into finance?
Do it.
Do it.
Just like quite literally do it.
Hmm.
And I don't mean just like show up and actually, yeah, show up. But
Hmm.
I don't mean in the sense of just like show up and assume it's going to be gifted to you, right? So like there's also a little bit of this culture of like, I believe in like our generation, so to speak. Like we're probably roughly close in age, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and there's this manifestation, right? Like, it's gonna come to you. I attract what's mine, and all that energy, right?
Yeah.
It's true. And I'm a living proof of it. It's true, right? To an extent.
Hmm.
You have to back that up. You have to you have to come to the game with your tools, with your cleats, with your pads, with
Right.
information to add value to it, right? Don't just
Hmm.
assume just because you said I'm going to be in finance, I want to break into the street. No, you need to sit down. Did you read through The Intelligent Investor? Have you
Right.
read through some of the hallmark books of finance,
Hmm.
and potentially spent hours and deep dives into book holes and articles from different individuals and so on, to gain a bit of a perspective? Because without a perspective, you're kind of coming to the game with no knowledge.
Right.
And to be able to put yourself in that position, um, I think to be able to be in finance in a way, you should start with accounting.
Hmm.
um, Accounting is the, if I were to compare it to the blockchain, right? Tying it all back to innovation and what's going on next, right? Each block that gets mined from the blockchain, all ultimately signifies a transaction.
Hmm.
It signifies like, oh, this is a proof of work, and the work was done. And so because of that, we will release this block reward to the GPUs that have done the work, right?
Hmm.
That's exactly what it's like to be in finance. You have to put in the work beforehand, and then while you're there, and then even after. So
Hmm.
take time to learn specific things of knowledge, right? In terms of finance, like learn what it means to have, like, what are the three statements, right?
Hmm.
Balance sheet, cash flow, and your P&L, right? Like learn how do those three statements interwork one another. Um, what ends up flowing through on the balance sheet, the assets and the liabilities and the equity ownership, like all those words. If you don't know what those mean right now, just go Google them. Like
Right.
that's where I think like you should probably start if you really wanted to step into finance. Start learning the vocabulary of finance and what it
Mhm.
means and how some of them all work into one another.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is this industry isn't a walk in the park and hard work is definitely necessary. So with that point, I do have a question about your work and what you're seeing on the field. How do you see innovation affecting capital markets today?
Like if we just even look at so innovation tends okay, how about this? Ready? Okay, I got an idea.
Mhm.
All right. So um I'm probably getting the dates wrong on this, but if I
Mhm.
could probably even Google it. But do you guys remember something like a long time ago called like Google Glass?
I never heard of it.
Okay, so a long time ago, Google came out. So 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 Google, right? Everybody knows what that is, right? Cool.
Mhm.
They've spent a lot of time doing these things they call moonshots, right? And it's
Mhm.
basically as an innovating company like Google, they're like, hey, we spent so much time in all of our businesses that spew out cash flow and they spew out money for us, and we have all this free cash that's coming through, or free cash flow from the businesses we've already sunk cost in, and now they're making more money for us, right? um, what we should do is we should make this whole different division that just focuses on like crazy tech that's like
Mhm.
not currently applicable, but we can make baby steps towards some super cool stuff. Like I think Project Loom was one of them, which was
Mhm.
when what they tried to, and this is more of a, I took it as a more like an ethical play in their part. I don't know what their actual true intentions are. I'm not Google, nor do I, but
Right.
I guess I'll disclose I am an investor in Google, yes. But they did this whole section called moonshots, right? And the moonshot, they had a project in there called like Project Loom, which I believe was them trying to give Wi-Fi to the entire globe by making like a mesh network of hot air balloons, I think, or
Mhm.
like it wasn't actually hot air balloons, but it was some type of flying device that would sit like just above the stratosphere, but before you go out of our range, so the Wi-Fi could permeate down to the ground levels of the Earth, and
Mhm.
everybody. The idea was provide Wi-Fi to the entire world, even the darkest areas where they have no real electricity and connectivity in Africa, or in some of the other like wild areas in Australia that are really not like developed yet. Right? That was the idea.
Mhm.
Cool. Also, another project within there was Waymo. So the
Mhm.
self-driving cars that we're currently seeing a lot of rigmaroles and noise around now, right? That was a part of that Project Moonshot. And one of those moonshots as well was something called Google Glass.
Mhm.
And if you guys look up Google Glass, you'll see it's some like little like cool little like cyborg looking, like if you remember dang, what's homeboy's name from Ned's Declassified? Cookie.
Cookie.
You remember? Okay, so Ned's Declassified, School Survival Guide. If you remember Cookie, he was like the nerd, techno dude, cool guy, whatever. But he would always have crazy gadgets, and it would be like some. So basically, it was like a little computer with a camera over one eye,
Mhm.
and like it could tell you like as you're walking, hey, make a left on 38th Street, and then this, that, and the other, and like if you wanted to order food or whatever, things like that, right?
Mhm.
That came out, I want to say early 2000s, like well, early decade 2000. So like
Mhm.
I think like 2011 or something like that. I hope I'm right on the timeline. Don't quote me, right? 2011, 2012, something like that. And then it came on the scene, kind of people were like, all right, this is kind of cool, but what does this even mean? And then now, if we look at what just happened, like what, last week or week before, we got Meta
Mhm.
releasing basically the Google Glass.
Correct.
right? But now it's 13 years later, right? So this is kind of the way that's how capital markets and finance affect innovation, right? Because
Hmm.
back when it was just Google Glass, how how was Google able to, aside from the fact that the tech wasn't quite there yet, right? Like it
Hmm.
wasn't as seamless. It was kind of weird. It was big, clunky to see a bit thing on it. Like now that they've been able to transition to much more like usable glasses and eyewears with the Meta collaboration with Ray Ban and that look Luxeolotica. I don't even know how to
Hmm.
pronounce that company's name, um, but now that it went from like, hey, Google pushing tons and tons of money into this moonshot idea that they're not sure if it's going to come about, right? And then, no matter how much money that Google put into it in that moment, they may not have been able to push it to market and be able to actually see market adoption of
Hmm.
that device, right? And then conversely, now with Meta and what they've been able to build basically by learning, I'm absolutely sure that whatever team that put that device together for Meta that's currently out and being sold now, where you can do all the Hey AI and Hey Llama and all the other stuff that they got in their
Hmm.
glasses, they learned from the failures of Google when they published when they put out Google Glass, right? So
Hmm.
no matter how much money and capital we could have thrown at Google Glass back in 2012 or whatever that time range was,
Hmm.
it kind of shows that the technology wasn't there, and sometimes it's not ready yet, and it
Hmm.
needs to sit and bake. And in this case, it was needed to bake for 12 years, 13 years. And then now
Hmm.
we're seeing them sell $800, $1,000 glasses. That's like supposed
Hmm.
to be this AI that's going to give me some cool insights into the world as I go about like living my day.
Correct.
So I think as of now, like obviously capital markets definitely play a role because they're the financing for all of this, right? There's
Hmm.
tons and tons of years of research and development that have to go into actually winning products.
Hmm.
But as of right now, we're on the cutting edge of it. Like it's so crazy.
Hmm.
I feel like I've been saying this for like probably like 20 years from like just seeing like from me and my friends putting together our first like podcasts or like a voice thing in like elementary school. And we're thinking
Hmm.
we're doing some crazy cool stuff. And then like and then like into like Uvu and like other web conferencing platforms back in the day, more cutting edge technology. And then it keeps on doubling up and then doubling up. And then now we're sitting here with AI. Now we're sitting here
Hmm.
with tons and several different products, Claude, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Microsoft's Gemini, all those different platforms and the use cases. And
Hmm.
the capital, like to be frank, the capital markets kind of built it all in a way.
Hmm.
Like obviously obviously the engineers did their part, the product managers did their part, the true product visionaries did their
Hmm.
part, all the people on the ground floor making the energy even go did their part, right? But without the financing and without the proof of an output of greater finance,
Hmm.
Meta wouldn't. If Meta couldn't make a glasses for $200 to then sell to you at $800, they wouldn't have cared to make the glasses in the first place.
Right.
And that's just being frank, right?
Right.
And sometimes we want to think that like, oh, it's for the greater good, it's for all this, and a lot of hopefully, sometimes it is. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, in a U.S. capitalistic centric society, a lot of innovation relies on the fact of how much money can come from that innovation.
Right.
Profit.
That's interesting to see that a lot of years goes by with this research and has to come up. So I was wondering what risks and what potential things do you look at to identify if innovation or something would work? What do you look at to see, hey, this would be good. I should invest in this, or we should go for this, or what metrics do you look at in that aspect?
Yeah. So when looking at investments and like kind of trying to figure out how to determine like what we should or how I kind of start to look at it from human nature, right? Like,
Mhm.
am I going to use it?
Mhm.
I find myself using ChatGPT and Claude every now and again, and
Mhm.
helping build out certain things and automate things for me for sure. So it's a benefit. Then I say, all right, does somebody who's maybe not technologically advanced use it? I think they do use it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, right? Like
Mhm.
what's kind of the gauge on the use case?
Mhm.
And I'm talking about more specifically um, consumer products, right? Like
Mhm.
in this case, open it. I obviously like there's some other investments that I've made that don't necessarily go to the end user as a consumer as you and I, but maybe
Mhm.
they provide things for businesses and do other things like
Yeah.
that. So those are a little bit harder to see off just like, hey, would I use that? Just that question alone. But I do think that if you start from that question, right? Like, hey, is this actually useful to society?
Mhm.
Right? Like, barring all the, like sit down and see, like, okay, is this good to society? Okay, what are the pitfalls here? Right? Like,
Mhm.
what are the pitfalls visible? Are they
Mhm.
blatantly in front of your eyes? Right? Like, um, and what could potentially be around the corner that take away the benefit immediately or take
Right.
away the pitfalls right away, right?
Mhm.
So I guess you could I'll say this. I recently published some research and some data points, and I was focused on energy,
Mhm.
right? In the capital markets, the energy sector has been relatively like relegated to value, right? And I mean
Mhm.
in the sense of like you like if you were to purchase it, don't turn around expecting a 10-20% gain on that asset. Similarly to how you could get in a tech name. Like if you just look at the Nasdaq 100 or the ticker symbol QQQ, like over the past what like few years, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's averaging at least double digit return.
Mhm.
Um, and the energy sector has not been that. The energy sector has been, hey, we are these legacy businesses that provide energy to the main areas of the world, and we either do it through coal, we do it through maybe a combination of solar and wind, maybe we do some other work through hydrogen, whatever the case may be, right?
Mhm.
If you were to see a material change in use of something, that is where you want to keep a mind out for, right? And
Mhm.
this is where it all kind of connects back to where your original question, right?
Mhm.
Energy as a whole has now recently made this shift from value to, hey, I'm going to park money here and collect a good dividend because we all still need energy at the end of the day, into now a growth asset,
Mhm.
right? Because as of recent, we have kind of outstripped our energy demand based on our current supply,
Mhm.
right? And because of that, now these companies that are providing however many gigawatts of energy now need to figure out how to double their payload
Right.
because of this other innovation that has come into town now that uses a ton of energy and everybody likes to use it. And so, like, pay attention to domino
Mhm.
effects may be something to definitely keep a lookout for, to know what to invest in and how to try to potentially
Mhm.
alleviate or steer away from. Because one domino came out. Before it was AI, it was machine learning. Cool.
Mhm.
Now we have machine learning. Machine learning is now we have AI. We need this compute to happen. Great. We buy a bunch of these NVIDIA chips to compute a bunch of stuff to be able to get it out. Okay. That's the domino. First domino
Mm,
falls. NVIDIA, number one company in the world, 4.5, 4.6 probably trillion market cap by year end. What's the next domino? Okay,
mm,
well, who is designing those NVIDIA chips?
mhm,
TSMC, Broadcom, those other company pieces, right? Then who also is you know, from these fabrication units and designing them, right? Who's who not only is designing them, but who made the machines to then be able to design them from TSMC or from them. Okay, so then now we're talking about ASML, right? And what
mhm.
they've done over in developing with Dutch these super fine machines that can get to like insane size, like nanometers. I don't even know that part. Like I'm not that technical. I'm kind of, but and that's how you can start to see the dominoes fall. So in
Mhm,
the case of energy, now we've had the machines, we've built the AI, we've designed it, we've pushed AI out to the people, and now OpenAI says that we have 800 million monthly active users. Wow, insane. Where's that energy going to come from? From every single question that's being
right.
asked. So now all of a sudden, we see tons and tons and tons of names getting more capital, tons of names. We're talking about energy names like EOS Energy Enterprise, Next Era Energy, which I believe they provide energy to like the southern states, like I think Florida and like um, South Carolinas and Georgias, like that company as well. Think Bloom Energy, VST with Vistra Energy. They're more utilities based.
Mhm,
All these companies now have all of a sudden turned into growth companies. Why? Because now there's such a supply. There's such a demand for more energy to be able to continue to compute, to continue to use AI, and then excuse me, and then that's kind of how you can gauge where some of your investments may want to be.
mhm. Definitely. So I got from that was basically it's very important to know where what you're investing in and where you're investing in and how it can overall affect society because a lot of times when you invest in a company that may not be doing certain things right, it can affect your investment in the long term often. So what are some keys that a lot of investors miss or metrics that a lot of investors miss that could potentially hurt them in the long
Um, it would be probably super simple for me to say, invest in companies with strong cash flows and um, large moats of business, basically, meaning like it's super hard to get into that business. It allows competition to stay outside the barrier.
run?
That's the simple answer, right? Or the most obvious answer. Um, and assuming that you're already doing that to some extent, right? I'm going to give you probably the more questionable answer.
Hmm.
Um, and it leads back to a question I always ask myself a lot of times before placing on an investment or a trade or the case may be. Um, is this perception
Hmm.
or is this reality, right? Like,
Hmm.
um, I think a lot of times there's this big gauge, and then there's roughly two crowds. I'll like kind of distill it down to two crowds, where there may be people looking to get into finance, into the capital markets, into the stock market for quick, fast gains because they heard
Hmm.
about the story of one guy that turned 10,000 into a million, which quite literally could have happened also this morning when AMD announced that news with OpenAI and how OpenAI is investing 6 billion into AMD, and the
Hmm.
stock jumped like 30% today, right? So like they're real. I'm not saying that it's not real. It occurs. It definitely does, but definitely not every day. and most
Mm.
certainly not every month even. And then the odds of you finding that one that does that is so, so low. And I'm not saying don't go search for them. By all means, go do it. Sure. It's your own capital. It's whatever you choose to do with your life ultimately. Right? But understand perception as opposed to actuality, right? And
Mm.
and and you can make money on both, right? And right now, I would say there's a perception. If I were to look at another sector that's done really, really well this year, it's
Mm.
quantum computing, and the belief that computing at this scale is going to be, the next game breaker. It's going to break the cryptology of Bitcoin and render Bitcoin useless. It's going to replace computing in our computers now, in our phones, and we're going to be able to move so much faster and router, all this XYZ, right? Um, and I am nowhere near technically inclined to say yay or nay that it can or cannot do those things, right? But I
Mm.
can say that as of right now, these companies have like almost little to no actual money being made as
Mm.
revenue.
Right.
They have committed contracts, right, with some of the governmental departments and maybe some other
Mm.
smaller companies looking to do that, right? And they're putting all that money into R&D. They're not
Mm.
turning over a profit. So remember, the whole point of the capital markets is to own a piece of the company so that you're able to reap the benefits of their future cash flows, of their
Mm.
future profits, right? So what a lot of people are doing now is speculating on names in the quantum space like Rigetti Computing or IonQ or QS,
Mm.
um, that they will be profitable in the future, not right now,
Mm.
right? So, and it goes back to the perception, right? The perception is that they will be profitable in the future because it can do, will do, maybe will, but is that always going to be reality? We don't know,
Mm.
right? We don't truly know. And even if it is reality, who's to say Rigetti is going to be the one that actually wins from that reality?
Mm.
Who's to say that there's not another engineer in his garage somewhere making an even better quantum
Right.
computing situation, and he just got, or they just got funding from another person to now be able to really ramp up their algorithms and all their testings and be able to do that, right? we
Mm.
we don't know who's truly going to be winners. That's almost similarly to say back in 99, when the internet bubble was going through its like run and rush, and who was on top, like Bell South, Yahoo, uh uh like, and then like who were the nascent companies that nobody knew about or wanted to care about? Amazon, right?
Mm.
Like what, you get what I'm trying to say? So like we're
Yeah.
not sure that they're going to be the ones that capture all the value, but there can be a perception that Rigetti is going to be the one, or IonQ is going to be the one that captures all the value in that market, right?
Mm.
And it's okay for them to run. Let me see, what is it up? Rigetti's up 4% on the day. Rigetti's up 158% year to date. IonQ is up 7.7% today and up 91% year to date, right? Like these are
Mm.
all awesome figures because of the current perception that this is the future. These companies will be able to provide it and such, right? And you can make
Mm.
money in the shorter term off that perception, but it's not quite there yet in actuality.
Mm.
When we start to see future cash flows, and then their ability to buy back shares, and then their ability to actually expand on those things, and when they start to look like the apples of the world, oh, they have that kind of home base and they spend how much on research and development, and they're still able to record a profit, and they're sitting on cash and they're
Mm.
not doing anything with it. They've been able to stockpile their cash to be able to be, something, to be a more fortified company with strong balance sheets to weather the storm. Like what happens tomorrow if another COVID hits?
Right.
Like what actually happens to these companies, right? So it's the perception and the actuality. It's the short term versus the long term. It's the hype and belief as opposed to profits and cash flows. You know, I mean, and
Mhm.
no knocking to either side. I love both sides. I actually find myself dancing in between both of them. But um, but you have to understand when perception is going to morph and find its way into reality, and maybe even when reality tends to find its way into the perception side.
Right. With this ever-changing landscape and things moving so fastly, and you said you don't come from a technical background, how do you keep yourself educated, and how do you think people can keep themselves educated on this technology?
Read, read,
Read.
read. Like I don't care how much time I don't have in a day, this, that, and the other. Read, read, read. And I was not actually really good at reading, like in terms of like, oh, I'm gonna read a book a month or anything like that. Like the frequency, I should say, right,
Hmm.
of reading. Um, really like early on in my career. I think I did do a bit of a transition 2018, 2019, where I just started reading more. Like,
Hmm.
read research papers, read things that you have no idea what they're saying.
Hmm.
Read things that make you research a word every 15th word.
Yeah,
That's where you're going to learn, right? And
definitely.
you're going to learn and know your limits and be like, what the heck? Like, I don't know what the integral of that is to be able to do this and like understand the differentiation of what? Like, read, read, read. Like, because guess what? It doesn't matter if you don't understand it now,
Hmm.
because later on, you're going to remember that one key fact, that one random sentence that stuck with you as you struggled through the book and you hated it. That's going to come back to you and you're like, oh, snap. Okay. Now I can connect this dot to that dot. And now I have this whole backlog of data, or maybe even spend some time putting together a little notion about something. That's another
Hmm.
piece too. Develop your second brain. There's something, I'm forgetting this guy's name, but he's on YouTube, and he was, I think, studying to be a doctor in London, somewhere in England or whatever, and he would notion out a ton of his readings. What are the key findings? And a lot of people do it on paper, right? And listen,
Hmm.
also no knock to paper. I love paper as well. Um, and it's studies have shown that writing it on paper actually imprint it in your brain even further. So honestly, I
Hmm.
say do both, right?
Hmm.
But to be able to index and like fetch that information 2 3 years down the line,
Hmm.
find ways to read, compile what you're reading into actionable, like, or even like outlined thesis points on what you're reading, things that you want to take from them, um, certain people's, point of view, dates, amounts, things that are like factual, like actually good for you, right? Quotations of somebody's, like maybe a specific quote stuck with you, um, and really work from there. But build that out, right? Like
Hmm.
when you want to learn about Bitcoin, go read the white paper first.
Right.
It's not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
First read, but then read it
That's
again, and then maybe even watch a YouTube video about somebody going through the white paper, and then maybe you get
breaking it
their
down.
perspective on it, right? And then you can say, oh well, I wasn't thinking about it like that, or no, I don't agree with you
Hmm.
on that one. I think they meant this, or then you get to start to learn a multidimensional like understanding of what something may mean.
Yeah. That's definitely something I had to learn as building my startup, especially at my young age. I didn't want to read anything, but looking how this landscape moves so fast and how it goes so fast, it's things that you could potentially miss out on if you're not reading or staying up to date on the news because it just moves so fast. So you could potentially lose money or you could potentially not find the opportunity if you're not staying ahead and on top of the news.
Most definitely,
Definitely.
yeah. Figure out your news cycles. And hey, we just spoke of probably like what 20 minutes about AI. Build automation. Figure out
Right.
how to serve yourself in the way of
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm not relying on a news on one particular news outlet. I'm not gonna only listen to CNBC or only listen to Bloomberg or only listen to Fox Business or only listen to whatever other angles are, but figure out ways to automate and feed yourself those news articles.
Definitely. I know a lot of people want to hear about stocks, so I am going to ask, do you have any stocks in the innovation area that you are currently investing in or that you have seen doing good besides the ChatGPTs or Anthropics and Googles?
Sure. Again, prefacing this is no financial advice here. This is all
Hmm.
educational. Uh, But I think, focus on like where we currently are, right? So if
Hmm.
I go back to what I just spoke about, perception of reality and all those other pieces, right? Like who could potentially win in the upcoming decade, right?
Hmm.
We saw what could happen when Google and names like Meta and the Mag 7 big boys can potentially do that. But I think I'll go back to what I said a bit earlier about energy.
Hmm.
Energy's found its way into growth. There's a ton of names that have done great as of late. I think find your way into something with lithium exposure.
Lithium?
Yeah, so battery technologies. I think that's going to be something that gets a little bit more love
Hmm.
um, because we had our first. I think we had our first real round of investment in battery technology
Hmm.
back in 2019, 18, 2020 when
Hmm.
when Tesla continued to churn out cars and there's this EV
Hmm.
race and all this other stuff. But I
Hmm.
think that is now going to potentially transition into power storage, power generation storage um, for the use case of compute. Or so think of names like ABAT, the ticker ABAT, Tesla. They already have a full-on network of like how to have at-home battery technologies, uh, names as well as like Next Era NEE. Their utilities, or even Con Edison in the New York metropolitan area of
Hmm.
utilities providers. Um, so just look deep into energy and find that undervalued name that is somehow going to be able to really capture the market. Um, like for example, another little like niche thing I've noticed was Google announced a partnership with some company, or I think they announced that they're going to build a data center in Arkansas, right?
Hmm.
So what does that mean to me? Arkansas needs like sound like it need more energy then, right? Okay, so now I'm going to look
Right.
to see what companies are situated in Arkansas to potentially benefit from this, right? And I'm
Hmm.
going to pay close attention to Google and whatever news cycle that can come out potentially, or what can I actually get ahead of, and understanding that, hey, the largest utility provider in Arkansas is such and such company. And they seem to be in the same similar jurisdiction as to where the Google plant may be, right? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like try to find like the whole game is a clue. Like this, the markets is clues. It's they tell you clues all day long, and it's your job to go try and find where the capital where you can extract the most capital out of those clues that
Hmm.
that they've given you, right? Effectively, right? So
Yes, sir.
um so just be diligent in that way, and also be aware of your surroundings. Aware, like when you step outside the house, look around. What companies do you see doing more deliveries? What is that logo? Oh, I don't know that company. What do they do? What is Honestly, like
Right.
quite literally, and I've made several Instagram reels about this kind of like, yo, like look at the companies in front of you, because a lot of times these companies that are spending tons and tons of money on ads
Hmm.
to be able to capture you as a potential customer, to actually provide these services or goods to these businesses, they're doing something, and they're doing that service or they're doing that good. So if
Right.
you continue to see them more and more and more and more, ask yourself, yo, what are they publicly traded? What they got going on over there? Let me look into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Nedrick, for coming on. Where can the people find you? Any Instagram, any upcoming dates, or anything you have going on?
Yeah. So I would say you can find me on, is exactly my name, Nedrick, Nedrick.
Mhm.
And I'm there. I'm also on X, where I tend to put out a few think pieces there. And I also have, a pretty frequent like research blog ish that I
Mhm.
put out when I have the
Mhm.
moment to be able to encapsulate some of my thoughts. At Agent Report, I'm sure I'll send you the links, Taiwan, so you can potentially
Yes, sir.
put that there. So if anybody wants a bit of access into my research, feel free. I tend to release it pretty frequently, really. So
Mhm.
hope you guys enjoy.
Thank you
But
so much for coming on.
no,
And
thank
you
you,
share
man.
so
Appreciate it.
much great advice and so much insight on capital markets. As me exploring capital markets and learning more, I thank you so much for being willing to share and inspire the next generation on this journey. So thank you so
Yeah, for
much.
sure. You got it, man. No problem.
Okay, as we see, that was Mr. Nedrick. I will do the close later.